Lala, you're on mute, my dear.
The gremlins don't like me today. We're going to be talking about some really good stuff today, guys. Welcome to Fly Nubian Money, where we help you master your mindset and maximize your money. I am Laura Lala Key. I'm a real estate agent who does international real estate. And in this episode, we are going to talk about a critical and a very controversial document called Project 2025. Now, I know you've been hearing a lot about that, but today we're going to educate you a little bit on it. This playbook outlines a plan for the potential next Trump administration, aiming to move the country toward a more conservative, far-right, Christian nationalist state. And we're going to explore what this document means and its origins and why it's so important that we pay attention. Now, I have some beautiful queens here today that are joining me for this conversation. We have Erica Renee. She is the author of Faith in Transition. Then we have Marlo Layson, TV and film producer. There's a little insider giggle about that. Jay Harrell, educator and national organizer. And Dr. Lene Javette, business coach and monetization strategist. Hello, ladies. I'm so glad you're here today. Before we dive into this, I want to explain something. Project 2025 is an extremely large and very, very detailed plan. So this is not something that we're going to be able to quickly go over and give you all of this information and then go, here you go. This goes pretty deep. And so therefore, this may not just be a one episode thing. We may be taking care of this in several episodes because the overview of Project 2025 has 4 pillars. And the 4 pillars are: 1, policy agenda; 2, personnel database; 3, training programs; and 4, 180-day playbook. So each one of those go into a lot of information that is really quite deep. So we're going to give you a wonderful overview today of what exactly Project 2025 is and what they are planning to implement. So I'm going to first tell you the goal, and then I'm going to throw some questions to our ladies who are also very well versed on this. Now, I personally have been reading and researching this for almost a year. So it's something that I have been reading daily. So the goal of Project 2025, and understand that it is a mandate for leadership, the conservatives' promise. The goal is to implement a conservative policy swiftly and effectively by ensuring the right personnel and plans are in place from day one. They already have applications and people ready to fill in these roles they want to implement. So Project 2025 is led by the Heritage Foundation and is a strategic plan designed to shape a future conservative U.S. presidential administration. Many of the leaders of Heritage Foundation work directly for Trump in some sort of way. Trump's name appears in the document over 300 times, even though he claims he has nothing to do with it. Trump has his own document called Project 47. However, it's just kind of a Cliff Note version of what Project 2025 is. And I feel like there's a lot of smokescreen going on with this. But the main understanding is, how is this going to affect our communities, especially minority communities? Now, Erica, I'm throwing it straight to you because I know that you do know a lot about this document. What are your thoughts on how this could be implemented so quickly, and the fact that they want this done within the first 180 days of the next conservative president?
Well, I honestly think this can be implemented so quickly because it's pretty much already in effect. There's a lot of it already happening that's been happening to our community. We can talk about the education piece where they're talking about closing down schools and implementing more charter schools or more private schools. And in New Jersey, that has been happening for the last 10 to 15 years. I can recall working at a nonprofit downtown Newark, and they closed so many of the major public schools. If they closed 5 major public schools, they opened 10 charter schools downtown Newark, and they opened them in office buildings. Now, these kids didn't have anywhere to go for gym. They had no PE, so they were coming to the nonprofit to rent the space so that they could have GEM. So this is already in effect. I think what they're actually doing, they've been playing in our faces for the last 15 years. And now they're saying, oh, this is what we're going to call it. And by the way, it'll just be, a little bit extra. So yeah, I think this is already in effect as it goes for education, especially the healthcare system. I mean, it's just out of control. So this is already happening. I think they're just finally putting a name to it.
And you are exactly right on that, because I like to say the practice states are Texas and Florida. And we know what they're doing in those two states have already started implementing a lot that has gone into this Project 2025 agenda. If you're just joining us, we are actually talking about a Project 2025. I would like to know if you have actually read and researched any of this documentation for yourself, or is this the first time that you're actually really starting to pay attention to what we are talking about today? Now, this is being said that it's a plan to reshape America. However, I have to tell you that this actually has been in beginning mode, some sort of way, all the way back to Reagan. So I'm going to throw this to you, Dr. Lene. What do you think are some of the most controversial parts of Project 2025 and why?
So, personally, for me, and I hope this doesn't sound bad, but anything that has to deal with Black people is the most controversial to me. A lot of the DEI rollbacks, I think I was reading that the SNAP benefits could be reduced. Hold on, let me look at my little thing here. So food stamps could be gone. School lunches could be gone in Black schools where they're underfunded and the kids need to go to school to eat. Student loans, Black home ownership. In my opinion, there are a lot of proposed cuts, if you will, that will affect us. The screen says Black home ownership. While nearly 3 out of 4 white Americans own a home, there's never been a nanosecond in Americans' history when the Black home ownership rate reached 50%. A second Trump administration will continue this trend by dismantling programs designed to increase Black home ownership and ending other uses of special purpose credit authorities to further equity. There's just so many different things. To me, this whole thing that feels like it's trying to take us back to, I won't say slave days. I don't think it's slave days, but definitely like the 50s, the 60s, 70s, maybe. No affirmative action. It's like they're trying to, even just some of the words that they're trying to erase. They're trying to how do you erase words in the dictionary? How do you decide, how can you ban words? So even that, the fact that you have enough control to ban words, like there's just so much that's wrong with this whole setup.
I need to piggyback on what you said, especially about housing, since you guys know that I do sell real estate. One of the first things that alarmed me in this document, before I even started digging into it, is, of course, I'm going to go to something that I'm professionally doing, is the housing market. One of the first things that they want to do is to get rid of the 30-year mortgage. And we all know that home ownership is already tough the way that things are. But if you get rid of the home ownership piece for 30-year, you're going to look at something pretty major and a big bump. Let me give you an example of this. And then I've got some really good questions for you, Jade, as well. So getting rid of the 30-year mortgage and adding a 20% MIP, mortgage premium, that's what they want to do. Anything over 20 years, they want to add the MIP. If it's over 20 years, here's how this could be a perfect example for you. An average mortgage in Seattle with today's rates is about $4,850. It would go up to $5,640 under the new plan. Now, that's with, of course, Seattle's prices, but I deal with LA and Florida. So that is quite a big jump when you're looking at first-time home ownership. So that is an example of how this would affect us and our minority communities when they're doing first-time home ownership. Jade, how do you think the public perceives the ideas presented in Project 2025?
Well, unfortunately, I think a lot of the ideas in Project 2025 are being downplayed, and specifically in terms of how detrimental This can be to the masses of Black America, who we know has been disenfranchised in many ways and currently continues to be disenfranchised. There's a racial wealth gap, opportunity gaps happening all over America that impacts Black America. Unfortunately, the way that I'm seeing, because I work in media, so I'm doing production for my clients at a very, very high level in media. I'm seeing that Project 2025 is being messaged to Black Americans in two ways. One, that they're using it to fearmonger, or they're calling it, these are fearmongering tactics to get Black folks to vote for the Democrats. Therefore, everything that they're saying about Project 2025 is not true, it's inconsequential, and it's not that serious. Go ahead and, vote red or vote however you want to vote, Black America, but don't let them use this in order to have them bully you into your vote or out of your vote. The other way that I'm seeing it is that, folks are just throwing they're cherry picking specific parts of Project 2025 to appeal to Black Americans to say, hey, Project 2025 is not that bad, because it has certain conservative leaning policies in it, or conservative policies in it that, many Black Americans may agree with, right? Like, there are many Black Americans that actually do agree with some of the immigration policies, like in terms of closing the border, et cetera, getting LGBTQ studies and gender neutral bathrooms out of public schools, for example. And so that is being used to finesse Black folks out of their votes as well. So I think that there's a lot of propaganda around Project 2025, and both the right and the left are using it to their benefits in order to sway the Black vote.
I think those are some very key points. Let's throw some of the comments that we have in the room up, because I think we have some very valid points. Danette says a lot of proposals would require a change in the U.S. Constitution, which is a lengthy process. Yes, it is a lengthy process. However, if you really look at this document, the minute that the conservative president comes in, they will be stripping all power from, because now it's set up where he can do so, thanks to the Supreme Court and other things that are happening, that's not going to matter. Our Constitution will still be stripped because now they have the ultimate power. That is not a scare tactic. That is their plan, and that is actually what they're doing. We Wealth Women, we know that's one of our other queens watching and supporting today. Project 2025 looks like Handmaid's Tale and the Hunger Games to me. That it really does. Emma says Trump didn't come up with that, nor does he uphold it. I beg to differ on that one, and I would love to hear. Okay, wait a minute, I gotta add. Erica, I need to know what your thought is on that comment, please.
Shout out to Emma. Thank you. No, I don't believe this is a Trump thing. I don't think it would be a Biden thing either. I think this is a plan for the higher ups, whoever sits above the president, whom we may never know. I call him the Wizard of Oz. This is something that's going to be implemented regardless of who the president of the United States is. I could be the president and this is going to be implemented. Jade could be the president and it's still going to be implemented. It doesn't matter. This has been a plan. It's been structured, and the strategy of it is to, continue to take away our civil rights, which they have been taken away. We have a huge immigration door that's wide open, and everybody is piggybacking and standing on the soapbox of our civil rights, but we're still on the brunt end and trying to fight for civil rights. We can't even have it. We're still struggling with the issue of affirmative action. And, now that's gone. So yeah, this is an issue, and it's going to be an issue regardless of who the president is. So I really think we need to stop focusing on, this is Trump's mandate. This is Trump's mandate. No, this is not a Trump thing. This is a government thing, and it's a world thing that's going to affect us all.
But I just want to interject, because this is actually, these are Trump's people. These are Trump's people at the Heritage Foundation. I have video receipts of Trump speaking at the Heritage Foundation and giving a big up to the guy, I forget his name, who started the Heritage Foundation, and Trump alluded to Project 2025. This thing is all of these policies and things that are being laid out and backed by all of these organizations are actually tied to Trump in one way or another. And I think that, Trump, is, you know, throwing rocks and hiding his hands. And I don't know how like realistic or truthful his base is being about his involvement and his people actually pushing these policies. Democrats honestly are not pushing the policies as laid out in Project 2025. Now, I do agree with Erica in that there are higher ups that want this agenda to go forward. But when we're talking about who's in office, right? So let's say Trump gets back in office, he's going to implement a lot of these things at the executive branch level via executive order. And there are already people in place, right? In the lower courts and in the Supreme Court, et cetera, in different parts of government that are actually already implementing these policies. But these are actually far right policies. And I think the more honest we are about that, you know, and listen, I am not a Democrat. I'm not a Republican. I am an independent. I have many of my personal values that are conservative leaning. And then a lot of social policies and things like that are Democratic leaning. So I would really call myself a centrist, but I think we have to be honest in this conversation. These are Republicans, and not just Republicans or conservatives, but the far right that are pushing this. And, you know, now the Democratic Party is not trying to associate their presidential candidate with that. And I just think that's just dishonest.
I think there's a lot of dishonesty going on, and that's what causes a lot of confusion. If you're just now joining us, you are joining Fly Nubian Money, and we are talking about a very important topic today, Project 2025. I know that you're probably tired of hearing it, but do you really understand it? It's something that you really should take your time to listen to. So we're taking the opportunity to break it down. As I stated earlier, we will be having more episodes on this because it's just too large for us to try to do in 1 hour. Now, if you don't want to miss any of our episodes, because we're on Monday through Friday at 1 p.m., you want to make sure that you text the word Queens to 87948. And then you'll be notified every time that we go live. And then if you want to listen to replays and kind of say, well, wait a minute, I need to kind of see what else they said and make your own critical decisions, you can head on over to Spotify and make sure that you subscribe to us there. You can listen to all of our shows there. And then if you want to get your money tight and right, which I advise that you do with today's economy, you want to make sure that you go on over to flynubianmoney.com. We have plenty of courses and resources for you to help you get your money right. Now let's dive back into Project 2025. Marlo, do you know of any historical precedents for this policy and its blueprints that it's built on?
Nazi Germany. A lot of people don't understand or don't know that before Hitler did everything that he did, he came in with a sweeping wave of making things illegal, disincluding the Jewish people from certain parts of government, actually firing people. One of the things that stands out to me as a person who believes that our republic and our very fragile version of democracy only exists and is only as strong as the people who uphold it, right? So the thing that sticks out to me is the consolidation of executive power. That's the part that would give the president kind of untethered power. I don't know if y'all remember during the first Trump era, there was a guy named Stephen Miller who worked on his staff, and he went on the morning shows one morning not long after Trump was elected and basically said the president has unchecked powers, which is not true, right? A lie that a lot in the media did not correct and reel back in. And so this idea of consolidating executive power and then reclassifying government employees as political appointees, right? So how you gonna get your business taken care of at the Social Security Administration if everybody in there is a presidential loyalist that is from the opposition, right? When we think about these what they call banana republics, right? We talk about these people's republics and these countries like Venezuela and even Mexico that have a democratic process. In Russia, right, is probably the most visible, where there is a democratic process, but the people aren't really voting. The people aren't really having a say in it. The action of going to vote is actually just theatrics, right? Because whoever is in power will remain in power. So I think that, Head Start and education is critically important. Voting rights, critically important. But if you allow the three, our system of three parties in government, right, which is the executive, the legislative, and the judicial branch, if you allow a sweeping revamp of that. That is how you go from Democratic voting republic to banana republic. It's just across the street. We're right across the street from a banana republic. And I think that people have to, again, I said yesterday, vote local, pay attention to what's going on local. Our governor here in Louisiana, Jeff Landry, we got about 13% of the vote in Louisiana because there was about a 27% voter turnout when he was elected. Now I have people saying, what about school lunches? Why they got the Constitution or the 10 Commandments got to be up in the schools, right? That's part of this. My great state is leading the way and putting things in classrooms that children don't need, that aren't going to lend themselves to education, right? So I think that it's always local. Look at your governor. You mentioned Florida, you mentioned Texas. They are ridiculously backward conservative in those states. Louisiana, include that, include Alabama, include Mississippi. What about Arkansas, right? I think that people really have to, as scary as the overarching federal issues are, state level, look at it on a state level, because if they can't do it on a state level, they can't do it on a federal level. So I think that the protections for people are local, and we just got to do the work as the voting public to make sure that things that we don't stand for don't happen. But if you just sit by and wring your hands and throw your hands in the air, they will seize that power.
And I think that's where we always say knowledge is power. You have to want to get that knowledge. So that is why we're discussing it today. We want you to understand what is being proposed and actually has already started being implemented in our government to take away your civil liberties, because that is what it is. That's not a scare sentence. It is very much true. I'm gonna read this comment. Donald Trump is a moderate, as you're going to come in the Republican Party, despite what they want you to think. If Project 2025 is passed, I don't think it will be under them.
Can I just respond to this?
Sure.
Project 2025 is a plan. It's not legislation, right? It is the blueprint to legislation. There is no Project 2025 on the table for our lawmakers to vote on. So I think we first have to have an understanding of what is and what is not. This is something that they are proposing. It's something that our Congress will have to vote on. So it's something that you as a diligent voter must decide, what are the people who are running for the state house, the Senate, the House of Representatives in Washington, D.C., what are they looking at doing? Who are those people? I think that that's what we need to be looking at. I don't want people to be confused thinking Project 2025, people going to bang a gavel in January and it's going to be whoop-de-whoop Project 2025. This is about who we send to government, who those people are backed by. The Heritage Foundation, who do they give money to? Who does Walmart give money to? Are we shopping at Walmart and bringing about our own demise, right? I need people to look at this as a big picture, right? It's 900 plus pages. It is overwhelming. But I think that it starts with information, and there is no Project 2025 pass. There are thousands of pieces of legislation within that would or would not be passed, just depending on who is in office. The most startling, again, is the consolidation of the executive power, because you don't want that.
Exactly. And also the plan to dismantle things like FBI, Homeland Security. They're also looking into lessening the power of Congress and Senate so that the president has ultimate power. So these are things that just can't happen overnight, but it can if we keep our eyes closed and don't do what we need to do. So I want to discuss the 10 areas.
Piggyback on what Marlo had said a second ago, because in preparing for this was actually the first time I had heard about the Heritage Foundation, right? So I won't say appalled, but I guess I was surprised to find out that they have been around since the 1980s, writing these types of documents. I think they call it a proposed policy wish list for potential governments in waiting. And the first one was written in 1981 for Ronald Reagan. But what I found interesting was that they actually wrote a document similar to this in 2016, and a year into Donald Trump's term, he had implemented or adopted, adopted nearly 2/3 of its proposals. So sometimes we don't even really understand or know what's happening from a governmental standpoint, from a Democrat, Republican, conservative, et cetera standpoint until it lands on our front door. Project 2025, Agenda 47 is landing on our front door. So we're taking it much more seriously. We're reading the documents, we're trying to understand it. But this type of rhetoric has been around since the 80s. No one has ever made it so blatantly racist and in your face where they're trying to steal all of our rights. So we haven't had to pay attention to it as much as we're having to pay attention to it now today with Trump, who is blatantly, openly communicating with, we'll say civilians, humans, people, Caucasians, that feel as if what we have is too much and they're trying to make everything all white. But these types of things have been there. So kind of like to what Marla was saying, we have to be diligent in showing up and voting, not just for presidents, but for House, for your senators, for the people that are in your state. Because if something like this does go through, it will be because it went through the House and it went through the Senate. And if the Republican, I think what they're saying is if the Republicans control it, it makes it a lot easier. But if we don't show up and make sure that the Republicans don't control the House and Senate, voting is not just the president. It's all the things. It's all of our rights. It's your educational system. It's for where you live. All of these things are equally important.
Agree. And if you're just now joining us, you are watching Fly Nubian Money. We are here Monday through Friday at 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Today we are discussing Project 2025, and we're trying to give you some great knowledge so that you can make your own decision about this document yourself. There's no scare tactics here. We're just discussing it. We all come from different viewpoints. And so we want to present those viewpoints to you. And if you want to make sure that you don't miss another episode, because we will be discussing this more, you want to make sure that you text the word Queens, QUEENS, to 87948. And you'll be notified when we go live. Also, you want to make sure that you check us out on Spotify. You can find us at Fly Nubian Money there as well. You could take us on the road with you, have your coffee in the morning, have your midnight drink before you go to bed and listen to us. And then also you want to head on over to our website, because regardless of what's going on, you always want to make sure that your money is right? So we have a wonderful resources there for you, courses and classes at flynubianmoney.com. Now listen, we having a hot conversation today. So if you want to get in on the conversation, keep your comments coming. I'm going to get to them. I know we have a lot, but we've had a lot to say as well. But if you also want to be a guest on our show, all you have to do is email us. And you can email us at info@realvirtual.net. And that's info@REELVIRTUAL.net. Let's get back into it. So how we're getting ready to pitch this one here, we're going to throw this in here. There is an article that is very interesting, because we do like to talk about our communities. So it's the 10 scariest ways this could affect Black people. And it's written by journalist and author Michael Harrett. And we're going to start with 10 and 9 today. So let's look at this. Number 10, make the government white again. 46.7% of low-level government employees were non-white, mostly African-American. Replace them with conservative-minded political appointees, MAGA minions. And they already have, guys, people who have signed up to be in these positions so that they can move. The Heritage Foundation and Project 2025 can move them into place quickly. Remember, I said they want to try to implement this within the first 180 days. And now let's look at number 9. Are you ready? Fight racism against white people. Project 2025 alleges that bureaucrats at the Department of Education inject racist, anti-American, ahistorical propaganda into America classrooms, which is why these so-called small government conservatives plan to defund Black history. Both plans vow to get rid of anti-white indoctrination, affirmative action, diversity, equality, and inclusion, and especially the dreaded critical race theory. We have already seen these be implemented into states such as Louisiana, starting, Florida, Mississippi, and also the great state of Texas, who has really been a big implementation in a lot of these things. So that's a lot to go through, but these are some things that you need to take into account when it comes to our communities. Now, Dr. Lene, considering the document's emphasis on conservative and Christian nationalist values, how might this influence the separation of church and state?
It doesn't. It literally is saying we're not going to separate church and state. If state gets to control church, then there's no separation, right? What is the article? So something about indoctrination of children. So we can't indoctrinate, I can't, for whatever reason, I can't say it right now, children based on gender, sexuality, Black history, race, things of that nature, but we can on religion. Now, I am a Christian, so I don't necessarily have a problem with it personally, but you can't pick and choose what things to indoctrinate and what things not to indoctrinate. Either you don't or you do. And in reality, you shouldn't. Everybody should have these rights and choices. How do you get to say which religion is right and or wrong? How do you get to say that this is the religion that we're going to put into churches? How do you get to say Jesus is white? Like, just it's too much power. It's too much power. If we're on such a slippery slope of becoming a nation where we don't have any power. And it's not just we as Black people don't have any power, it's we as Americans don't have any power. So if Americans don't have any power, and we as Black people, African Americans, have less power than Americans, it's going to be really bad. It's going to be a really sad day. Whether we're talking about religion, jobs, houses, business, education, mortgages, it's going to be a very sad day for Black people if any part of this Project 2025 or Agenda 47 actually finds its way through.
And I think we have to think of that as our communities. A lot of times people think this is the Caucasianist part. They're not, they're all getting together with this, but in fact, the goal is to separate and divide. We already know that we're divided in our country very, very easily down the middle. And so this is just another way for division, and we have to always keep that in mind. I want to read a couple of our comments that we have. James Stalin says, a second Trump administration will continue this trend by dismantling programs designed to increase Black home ownership and ending other uses of special purpose credit authorities to further equality. That's actually true. That's part written in there. James Stallings has also put in a lot of great information about how he's broken it down to what's included into the document. I do encourage you to read those because that is quite a bit. He's like up to number 10, I believe. Michelle Fiery says, are you serious, Hitler? What the hell? Honestly, you've been brainwashed by the fake news media. I'm Canadian, and it's unfathomable that you Americans can't see the truth.
It's It is unfathomable for a white woman. I believe this is Michelle Fiery, is a white individual, to come over into a Black conversation and to tell us what we think or how we've been brainwashed or whatever our experience is. If we're going to have this conversation, we're having it. Michelle, if you want to come into the chat and tune into Fly Nubian Money, you're more than welcome to do so, but also read the room and be mindful of your whiteness. So this is where I step into my anti-racism training hat and put on my facilitator hat. You get to not come over here and tell Black women or Black people what to think, how to think, or whatever. If you want to sit and learn, you can actually do that, but you can keep your unsolicited racist comments to yourself.
Ditto.
And I'm sorry, and Michelle, cut it out with the Native American, sis. Discontinue. I just had to put that in there because, you know, all of a sudden you want to have a drop of blood that's of ethnicity to feel like you are validated by what you're having to say, and your rudeness and audacity on top of it. No, let's discontinue with the Native American blood drop. And, you know, you are using your privilege because you don't look Indian in the picture you got. You're looking like you're using your privilege. Yes, I can get defensive, sweetheart, because this is my platform. I digress. So yeah, discontinue that and have a nice day.
I think most people who follow us understand that we are in a really, I'm sorry, go ahead.
I do apologize. I need to back up my sister Erica, because Michelle tried to come into the chat and claim that Donald J. Trump was not a racist and that there are many Black conservatives and Black Republicans. Yes, we do have Black Republicans. We do have Black conservatives and Black Democrats. You know, our sister Michelle may have a different opinion politically than on this panel, but that's still our sister. We get to have these conversations without whiteness coming into play and trying to pit us against each other. So I want to reference that comment about you claiming that there are Black conservatives because you're trying to sow discord within the conversation that you weren't invited to. So I just wanted to name that. I do apologize, Lala, for interjecting because, you know,
I'd like to introduce my favorite Black conservative to the chat, Michael Steele. If you want to look at a conservative viewpoint that is a straight down the middle, reasonable, very standard Black conservative viewpoint, most Black people lean a little bit more conservative than they do liberal. Check out Michael Steele. Nobody is hating on conservatives here, but the idea of anti-white racism, as you know, my good sis jumped in the chat to defend these sorts of principles, right? As we were going over Michael Harold's 2 of his top 10, this idea of anti-white racism and not wanting to teach the nasty old critical race theory to 5-year-olds. I never knew that we taught collegiate level classes to kindergarten children in mass in that way in America. So that was new to me. But I think that this idea, like the pendulum has swung so far away from anything that most older, these crafters of this are older white men, let's be honest, right? It's swung so far away from their direction that they don't understand America anymore, right? So this idea, if you understand what racism is, the idea of anti-white racism doesn't exist. Call it prejudice, call it bias, call it bigotry, but there is no such thing as anti-white racist. So like even the language that is being used in the document as they're explaining some of these things teeter on the ridiculous and they teeter away from logic and reasonable understanding. So just everybody proceed with caution as we look at this and try to delve into this document. I was caution people against getting your panties in a twist, my good sis Michelle. Like we're all just trying to filter through this information and figure out what the best way forward is for this particular collective of people and how we will be affected by that. And I don't think that there's anything wrong with these conversations.
And I don't either, but we also understand when disruptors want to enter the room for that purpose. And I'd like to point out, if you've never watched this before, then maybe you don't understand what we're all about. What you don't understand is my beautiful queens that are here with me. We all have different perspectives, and our goal is to educate you on all sides of the platform. So if you have a problem and you don't like what we're saying, you can step. It's okay. We don't mind. So with that being said, as this fear-mongering thing, sister, why are you so threatened, Michelle? It's all right. I'm going to throw a question to you, Jade. How do you think the proposed restructuring of the federal agencies will affect their functionality and their efficiency? Because they are planning on stripping a lot of their powers. Jade.
Muted. I'm trying to.
Oh. I'm going to throw it to Erica while she's getting herself together.
Okay, I was frozen. Whew, okay. Michelle, and it messed up my algorithm. So we definitely do have government structures, right, as they were intended to function in order for there to be a system of checks and balances in government, right? So that no one particular sector of government or branch of government is able to serve itself. And there needs to be checks and balances because ultimately the government is supposed to serve the people. So without, like, with the dismantling of many of the, now I do believe that a lot of these agencies definitely do need to be improved upon, rectified, and they need to be cleaned up. But just completely disbanding things like the Department of Education. There's another thing that they want to do, which is, I know Trump has spoken specifically about giving police officers immunity. One of the things that's laid out in Project 2025 is for them to be really, really tough on crime and to use the death penalty as often as possible, which actually scares me because when we look at per capita, like the number of Black men in particular that actually receive the death penalty is really disproportionate. And we already know how the judicial system is set up, and even policing, that targets Black men and Black women. So these are things that are actually really, really concerning. But the impact, if these policies or Project 2025 and these ideology or whatever are implemented, I will be very, very concerned about the safety and the resources given to Black Americans.
Even that, can I piggyback on what Jade said? Because she made some great, first of all, I love Jade. So I could listen to Jade with my ears closed and know that it's something good being said. But even with what Jade said, they're looking to take away the or dismantle the departments that get that data. So they're saying that we'll have a higher rate of death row of killings, if you will. Let's just say killings, not death row. It's a higher rate of killings, and we're not going to monitor what's happening with Black people. And so how do you then cry racism, or how do you then cry this is disproportionate, or how do you then say this is wrong if there's no rhyme or reason? There's no monitoring. We don't know. Well, how do we know that this is happening more to Black people? How do we know that there's more Black people in prison? How do we know that whites or Black people are being pulled over by the cops more than, how do we know these things? So if we dismantle these programs and these departments, and then we go and give police more power, how do we then know what's really happening in our communities? Like, it's crazy that this is even being put out there like this. It's crazy to me that people aren't actually looking at this. Like, I'm gonna be very, very honest. I'm just very truthful. I was having a conversation the other day with my mom, and we were talking about, the election, and I'm like, I'm not even voting for a president at this point. I'm voting not for a president. Like, they haven't given me a candidate who has the values that I have, or is looking out for the community that I live in, or is talking about the future that my son can grow up in. None of that is being put out there into the world. At this point, I'm voting against a project. I'm voting against a president that could come in. I'm voting against. I'm not voting for. I'm voting against. Because these policies, and we're just talking about Project 2025. We're not even talking about the Supreme Court appointment that's getting ready to happen that we can't let the Republicans get. Like, there's not, everything about this election in 2024 screams, get your nieces, your nephews, your cousins, your auntie, your grandma, and anybody that can vote, and go out to the polls to make sure that the legacy of Black people, the everything that happens from this point on is protected. Because if we don't protect it in this election in 2024, I can't even imagine what this world is going to be like in the next 20 years. Not just the next 4 with Trump in it, but what will be put into place over these next 4 years will set the precedents for our children and our children's children and our children's 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 world. It matters. It's important. We have to be thinking about this. This election is not one of those, it doesn't matter. It matters the most.
And with that being said, I have to say, if all the things that we have been fighting for years and finally got feeling like we got a half of an inch of it, with Project 2025, they'll be stripped away again. How many more years will it take for us to get back what we have lost once before? I do want to raise a comment up from Michelle Brown, because I want to make sure that you have a reminder of what you're watching. We are Nubian. Kind of says it in the title. So we appreciate you, Michelle. That is true. Nubians in the title. So if you don't know what you're watching, this is a Fly Nubian Money. And we are here Monday through Friday at 1 p.m. We talk about things that affect our community, and we also help you to think about your finances as well. You want to make sure that you watch us Monday through Friday at 1 p.m. And if you don't want to miss an episode and join the conversation with us, because you can put the comments in. As you see, we definitely talk back to you. You want to make sure that you text the word Queens, QUEENS, to 87948. 87948. And if you really want to come on and have your opinion heard, you're more than welcome to do that. So why don't you send us an email? Send us an email at info@realvirtual.net. And that's info@REELVIRTUAL.net. We are talking about Project 2025 today, and this will definitely affect us financially. So if you want to get your money right and money tight, make sure that you go to flynubianmoney.com. We have a lot of great resources for you, a lot of courses that will help you put your money in order. Woo! Do you see just how much we are already having issues with just trying to educate the public? And that becomes a very hard thing, because I feel like a lot of times people come in and want to throw things off track when the main points should always be hit. So I'm going to reel us back in a little bit because it's very easy to get off target. So Erica, I want to know, out of this document, and I know you have many concerns, but what is the one thing that is the most concerning for you?
Oh my God, it's so much. I don't have children, but I still look at that education piece. It is crucial, especially with so many schools that are closing. You are closing public school after public school after public school after public school. And it's like, well, where are all of these kids going to go? And now you have teachers that are generally in the Black community unfamiliar with our culture, coming in from the Midwest and out of town to educate our children. Or are they educating our children based on an agenda? So that for me is a really big challenge, because I've actually seen it. There's a part of Newark, New Jersey, where they actually built housing for teachers that were willing to come into Newark and teach for 5 to 6 years to have their student loans forgiven if they were able to teach in an urban community. And now those teachers, they came in, they made X amount of dollars, and then they just left. These kids didn't learn anything. A lot of the teachers were unqualified. There was a teacher that was actually teaching high school who was only licensed to teach the 8th grade. Who found that out? The actual students found that out when that gentleman came into the school to start educating them. So this is a really big concern for me, the education piece, even though I don't have kids. But you know what? I'm going to get old. Thank goodness. I'm going to get old. And the generations behind, those will be the ones to take care of us. So it is very important that this education piece is taken care of.
I agree. I already feel that we're so behind in the world. And I see a huge difference. I need to point this out. When I'm in Portugal and I'm seeing families walking with their children, these babies, they're looking around, they're experiencing, they're playing on the playground, they're playing in the sand. They're not looking at their phones. When I'm in America, I see babies 6 months old doing this. And we're already behind on the education system. I think it's so critical on how we decide that we're going to change that for our children. It's just really important. A bitch stay winning says, I love it. I love how we're so creative. Black American people should withhold their vote until either side gives us a viable plan for Black America. Jade, go.
Can I defer to Dr. Lene first, and then I'll
Yes.
She starts shaking her head emphatically.
I was going to say, because I was hoping we were going to have that conversation, because that is crazy. First, let me say, I understand the thought behind it. Take us seriously, appreciate our vote. So I understand what you're saying, and I do agree with that. However, we got to play chess, not checkers. Like, we show up to these types of things playing checkers based on our emotion. Emotionally, you should respect my vote. Emotionally, I shouldn't vote for you if you didn't earn it and you're not thinking about me, right? So I get the sentiment. However, if we held our vote and we didn't show up, we would literally be letting all these other people speak for us. We would not have a say so. And they're not thinking about us. They're not going to vote for our on our behalf or the things that get us further. They're trying to take the stuff we have away already right now, right? So in theory, it does make sense that Black Americans should withhold their vote, but the reality is we cannot. We have to go out and vote on these and education. We have to go out and vote on what's happening in our community. We have to go out and vote on these two crazy maniacs that they're trying to get one of these two into the office. Like, we have to, because if we don't, then we literally, I'll do the history thing. Our ancestors died and sacrificed for the right? Like that is important. But B, we're giving our right away. We're giving our options away. We're giving our ability to live any type of quality of life away. So we have to go and vote, even though they don't give us good candidates, even though these people don't care nothing about us, even though we have to go and fight the machine. That's my 2 cents. What you got to say, Jade?
Yes, I was going to say that during the last election cycle, I was one of the ones toting the hashtag no reparations, no vote, hashtag no tangibles, no vote. And I just really, always at the local level, I've always voted. I will always continue to vote. But during that last presidential election cycle, I could not in good conscience vote for Joe Crime Bill Biden or for Donald J. Trump. And so I personally asked Dr. Claude Anderson if I could write his name in. And that was, it sparked into a whole conversation because, in Powernomics, he definitely does talk about holding the Black vote. But what I learned is what he's saying is to use the Black vote strategically. And he did not want us to take his words out of context and say not to go to the polls, because we can't afford to not go to the polls. We just get to be very, very strategic about who we're voting for, financing our own candidates and buying our own candidates, and voting for people who are pushing a Black agenda. And so with that, I voted for a third party candidate last time. I'm going to do the same thing this time. At this point, I am interacting with the phrase not go to the polls, or I'm voting for the couch, or I'm not voting for anybody. I see that now as a form of voter suppression. For all of the reasons that Dr. Lene just laid out, we cannot afford to not vote, especially not at the local level, and especially not in the swing states. So if you're in one of the 7 swing states, Pennsylvania, where that rally just happened, where there was an attempted assassination on the now Republican presidential nominee, Pennsylvania is a swing state. So is North Carolina, as is Georgia, as is Wisconsin, Michigan, Arizona, and Nevada. So those 7 states are going to determine who the next president of the United States is going to be. So if you're not in one of those 7 states, then more than likely your vote for the presidential nominee is already set based off of if that state is traditionally blue or red. Now, at the local level, and so this is where the voter suppression comes in on that phrase, at the local level, Black folks, we cannot afford to just give our votes away or to sit home and quote unquote vote for the couch. First of all, it sounds ignorant and stupid. Second of all, there are judges, people, their district attorneys, public advocates that will be on ballots, and a slew of, Congress people, states representatives, right? Representatives of state legislatures that are also going to write policies and vote on policies that affect your Black life. So I see the phrase Lala as voter suppression. We need to vote, period.
I agree with that. And we are starting to wind down the show. But before I throw my final thoughts to our queens here, because we know that this is going to be an ongoing conversation, I want to put something in all of you all's ears to start thinking about. I'm going to need you to pay attention to what I'm getting ready to tell you, because one of these points should at least make you mad. And then you want to see what it is that they're trying to do to make these changes. So here are a few, just a few key agendas that Project 2025 is offering. You ready? Ending no-fault divorce, repealing the Affordable Care Act, providing additional tax breaks for corporations and the wealthy, instituting a complete ban on abortion based on the Comstock Act of 1800, cutting Social Security and Medicare, eliminating climate protections, defunding the FBI and Homeland Security, banning LGBTQ plus education and strictly limiting contraceptives in vitro fertilization, banning pornography and imprisoning violators, banning Muslims from entering our country, eliminating union and worker protections, raising the retirement age and prescription drug prices, eliminating the Department of Education, banning African American and gender studies, banning books and curriculum about slavery, using the military to break up domestic protests, ending birthright citizenship, eliminating federal agencies like FDA, EPA, and NOAA, and getting rid of the 30-year mortgage that is also going to cut home ownership for people. I say these things because we are going to continue this conversation to help educate you. And if one of those things really got in your craw, then I urge you to make sure that you go and download that document. It's everywhere. It's everywhere. Very easy to get your hands on because they're putting it right in your face. So before we leave, I want to hear final thoughts from all of my queens. And I want you to please tell us where we can find you. Let's start with Dr. Lene. Your mic.
I just want to roll my eyes at these comments over here. There's so much. I don't even know where to begin. I think there's two that I wanted to talk about. One is, why don't Black men have as much of a problem with Project 2025 as Black women are making about it, as well as Trump is not Project 2025. So this is what I will say. I don't necessarily think or believe that we are voting for presidents as much as I think that we are voting for rights. So whether or not Trump himself is associated with 2025 is irrelevant. The document, the agenda, what it represents is enough to say no, right? So anybody, whomever it is that supports that document, the rhetoric in that document, and the dismantling of who I am and my rights, I say no to. So with that being said, Black men should have a problem with 2025. I was having a conversation with somebody the other day. From a business standpoint, as I'm an entrepreneur, I understand a lot of the stuff that Trump is talking about. And I get the money breaks and the tax breaks, and I get that. And I'm for all that stuff, don't get me wrong. But I put my race, my son, my community, and the longevity of life. And that's what I'm looking at. Project 2025 is not for Black people. It's literally against us. It's to take our rights away. That's not fear mongering. It's telling the truth. And if you don't get that, if you don't understand that, go read the document for yourself. And then think about your family and your children and your children's children. And then you make your own choices and decisions. So I'm Dr. Lene Javette. I am a monetization strategist. I am a business coach. You can find me on all social media at I am Dr. Lene Javette. I specifically work with Black, I'm gonna say it again, Black business owners, service-based entrepreneurs who are looking to triple their revenue. That's it.
So Dr. Lene, you got a Black job?
I got a Black job, and I help other Black business owners to do what they do. I've helped multiple businesses become 6-figure businesses. Some hit 7 figures, and I specifically work with Black businesses because we are the least funded. We're the most attacked. We're the most criticized, and we have good businesses. We have good innovation, and so I take a lot of what I know and help our businesses to succeed and put strategies in place so that they can do what they want to do in their community.
Love it, and love it. So make sure that you go and check her out because she has a lot of good information for you. Marlo, what are your final thoughts and where can we find you?
So my final thought is we are kind of, I think, being vigilant about understanding Project 2025 is for the benefit of the least of us, right? It's for our cousins who are so mired in poverty or subpar living conditions that they can't pay attention to the news. It's for those of us that are turned off by this sort of thing, so we don't delve into this, right? The people who the information gets to at the last minute. I think when I heard Lala running down the list of what the project is kind of in synopsis, I hear a lot of unpaid tax breaks. That's something that has gotten our economy in a downturn multiple times during the Bush administration, during the Reagan administration, during the Trump administration. We increased our debt. There's no conservative that'll say the way that we handle taxes in this country, if they're being honest, that we handle it the right way with, you give these unhinged tax breaks to people who already don't pay their fair share, right? So there's that. I hear a lot about privatization of everything and politicization of everything else, right? So we want to privatize public schools through charters or private homeschools. We want to politicize government jobs, right? So we want to politicize the IRS, the Social Security Administration. I think that people need to stop looking at only my pockets and how things make my pockets better, right? Because if your pockets get fat and somebody else's pockets fall out, what you think is going to happen to you and things that are in your pockets? I think that, for Black people, we got to get away from this rugged individualistic mindset that is America. That's not who we are as people. We are communal. And I think that we need to get back to being community and working in one another's best interest. So hopefully, people will look at this and they will say, you know what, just because it's not bad for me, like Erica says, she doesn't have children, but the scariest part to her is education, right? Because if you think future forward, how could you not be afraid of an uneducated populace, right? Or an undereducated populace. So I think, come out of your selfishness, right? And come into a communal understanding and obligation. That's how we keep each other alive. That's how humanity has been going on for all of these years, is because empires fall when they go off the hinges and people rebuild. So we are at, I think, an apex moment in the United States of, will we be Venezuela? Will we be the Soviet Union? Well, Putin wants to be Soviet Union, Russia, right? Will we be China, where people see big, tall buildings and things are happening, but it's happening at the expense of the people, right? And there's a small group of people that are getting it and hoarding it, and everybody else is suffering. So do we want to run toward that a little bit faster, or do we want to pump the brakes and think about what we're doing and think about how that affects all of us all the time? And I think then we'll come up with the best conclusion about Project 2025 and just our system of government in this country overall.
Where can we find you, Marlo?
I am Marlo Layson. I am a journalist in the state of Louisiana, so you can find me anywhere in these internet streets. I also am a documentary film producer, and I'm on Instagram. My name is Olwin Marlo. That's my first name backward and forward _.
Love it. And someone asked in the chat where they can find a copy of Project 2025. You can go to project2025.org. It is clearly written on that page, and all you have to do is download it as a PDF. So I'm actually going to throw it over to you, Erica. What are your final thoughts for today? And because we know we're going to hit it again, but where can we find you as well?
I'm glad we had the actual website up there, because what I was going to say is read this document. It is important. There is a lot to unpack. It's about 900 pages, maybe a little more, a little less, but it is so important that we become well versed in what is happening in and around us, regardless of who you're voting for. This is so much bigger than the election, because like Jade said, or Dr. Lene, this is not about the next 4 years. This is about a legacy. This is about what's going to happen above and beyond our lifetime. So it is so important that we are prepared. So it is vital that you read this document, ask questions, do a deep dive. We deep dive everything on TikTok and Instagrams and what's going on with the latest reality stars. But in our reality, this is the deep dive that we need to be attached to. I'm Erica Renee, also known as Erica Lewis. I'm the author of Faith in Transition, and you can find me on all of my social medias at Miss Erica Renee, or at my website at faithintransition.com.
Thank you. And also, I want to say before we move on to Jay that we really had a wonderful spirited comments from people who are watching. We appreciate you at least voicing your concerns. We don't always have to agree. That's a part of being an American. Okay. We don't always have to disagree, but I tell you what, we always must come to a foundation where we have an understanding in that foundation, and then we can grow from that together. So Jade, what are your final thoughts, and where can we find you?
Thank you. I'm Jade Harrell. I'm an educator, a national organizer. I'm also a media, education, and political consultant. You can find me at highblackesteem.com, also on social media networks at Lioness Crowns. I've said a lot today. The main thing is that we need to be very, very educated and make informed political decisions as it pertains to our vote. And honestly, we just need to learn more, study more, and get out there and organize. Education, advocacy, and organizing go hand in hand. You have to, all three of those go hand in hand. It's like a holy trinity: education, advocacy, and organizing, right? I want to send love out to my Black people on the left and my Black folks on the right. These are my brothers and sisters. As long as we are Black first and we're putting our interests first, and we are organizing and using our positions in order to advance the Black collective, more power to us. Shout out to that. We're not a monolith. We have varying degrees of life experiences as well as political leanings, but the main thing is that we get to come together and have conversations such as these, and then to organize in order to advance our people. And so, yeah, those are my final words. At a certain point, we just have to be very, very informed about what we're talking about. So also shout out to everyone in the chat who also displayed their differences of opinion, and hopefully this opens up your appetite to learn more and to do your own research and to read the document for yourself. Lala and Queens, thank you so much for having me today.
What I absolutely love about this is just that you have so many different views here. You have such beautiful queens here, and we try to educate you or give you the information that you need that you can base your own opinions off of. It's never a bad thing to debate. It's not. You can't ever convince me of that. Sometimes you may learn something that you didn't know and grow from that. So my name is Laura Lala Key. I'm the international real estate agent, and you can find me at bit.ly/Laura Key Info. I urge you, I implore you to get involved. There is always a platform that you want to fight for. Find what it is that you want to fight and support for, because that's where you start within your own self. And always be able to hold a listening ear, because if you don't listen, then you don't understand where the other side is coming from. It's simply that easy. So we want to thank you for joining us today. We loved all the comments. You are watching Fly Nubian Money. We are here Monday through Friday at 1 p.m. and you don't want to miss an episode. And how do you not miss an episode? Well, all you have to do is text the word Queens, QUEENS, to 87948. And if you want to get your money right and money tight, make sure you head on over to our website, flynubianmoney.com. And then don't forget that we're on Spotify as well. Go on over there, same name, Fly Nubian Money. Subscribe, give us a good review, and take us on the road with you. And then listen, you had a lot to say, y'all, but I sure would love to have you come on as a guest. Now, come on here and debate. We like to debate. You have to just email us for that at info@realvirtual.net. That's info@REELVIRTUAL.net. Now, listen, guys, we just opened the door for you. We are not trying to sway and persuade. What we want you to do is to get educated and understand each one of the points. So this will be a continuation of this because there are 4 pillars to Project 2024. We opened the door to some of the things that you should be thinking about that will affect your communities and your household. But we want to say thank you. We want to say thank you for being here today. Continue to come. We love the comments, and keep the comments going even after we're not live anymore, because we do come back and comment. So thank you for joining us today. We will see you tomorrow, same time, same Queen channel. Y'all have a good day. Bye.